summons a violent gale strong enough to deflect the blades and hurl them right back at Jack, slashing him and severing his own wires. With unshakable resolve, Heracles declares he ain't wild delight and using his special eye stares into the hero's aura, describing it as a truly precious color. By London, when at 12 years old he scraped by begging for scraps, living with his mother Mary in a brothel. To him, she was a being of golden light, his one and when Mary, crying through her tears, confesses that she regrets ever bringing him into this world, saying he was nothing more than a means to hold Cerberus, transforming his own body with the demonic energy of Hades' hound. Zeus warns in dread that it's a suicidal technique. Heracles must finish the fight fast, or he'll be consumed by its power. The battle kicks into overdrive. Jack twists the ruins of London into divine treasures to hold his ground, but Heracles smashes straight through him with brutal force. Even when Jack tries escaping with a grappling hook, the demigod slams him down and impales him on a metal fence. Bleeding and broken, the killer still insists the entire city is his weapon, using even his cloak to topple buildings onto his foe. Heracles walks out unscathed and roars that his heart will never break, inspiring Jack to want to paint it with the color of true love. The showdown turns more and more direct. Jack keeps transforming wood and iron into divine weapons, but he barely manages to scratch Heracles, who strikes him down with merciless power. The gods celebrate what looks like their victory, while some humans start losing faith little by little. Yet Jack stuns everybody by getting back on his feet with a grin, singing out loud, a gesture that actually earns him the admiration of the hero himself. At the climax, Heracles winds up for the final blow, but Jack stabs him right in the chest using his own blood, transformed into a divine treasure. The demigod then realizes the trickster had planned from the very start to soak his gloves with blood. Drained of strength, Heracles asks what color he's showing now. Jack answers that it never changed, and in an unexpected gesture, he admits his loss. The hero embraces him warmly and thanks him for the fight, proclaiming he loves humanity before slowly disappearing. Heimdall declares Jack the victor, but the crowd from Thebes pelts him with stones in fury. Conan Doyle calls him a monster, while Shakespeare declares that what's beautiful can be foul, and what's foul may still be beautiful. Brunhilde, though icy cold before the crowd, honors the fallen heroes in private. Meanwhile, Loki and Hermes reveal that everything, even Jack's wounds, had been carefully calculated by him. Finally, as the gods struggle to accept the loss of Heracles, Loki accuses Buddha of being a traitor, unleashing the wrath of the 7 gods of fortune, ready to pass judgment. Before the 7 gods strike, Loki steps in, claiming that Buddha is his prey, but right away he mocks him and moves to his side, asking the Enlightened One if he really thought he was trying to protect him. Buddha, with absolute indifference, replies he doesn't care, and unleashes a mighty aura, challenging them to fight if they truly got the guts. At that moment, Kojiro Sasaki appears, muttering that the heavens are way too damn noisy. He criticizes that so many would gang up against one man, and declares that gods and humans ain't really that different, even going as far as saying Poseidon himself would never stoop to such disgrace. Loki, intrigued, asks him why he's still around after his own turn had ended, to which Kojiro snaps back that he won't stand for unfair alliances. He then unsheathes his blades and vows to fight alongside Buddha. Ebisu calls him a fool for joining such a hopeless battle, but soon Soji is forward, resolute to fight. Though Hoteisen warns they'll only meet death, Soji insists passionately on joining the struggle. The swordsmen, together with Buddha, stand against Loki and the 7 gods of fortune. In the clash, Isami worries about Kojiro's wounds, but Kojiro reassures him, saying the doctors are more than excellent. Loki, growing agitated, warns that interfering will only drag them straight into death. Kojiro fires back defiantly, saying the gods always think everything's gonna play out exactly the way they want. Loki, dead serious, snaps back that they don't just believe it, they make it reality. The battle erupts. Ibasu fires at Buddha, but he dodges with ease, leaving everyone stunned and confused. Loki summons his chained blades and lashes out, though the opponents manage to block the strike. Soji closes in while deflecting blows, irritating Loki, who feels he's being underestimated. Just when it seems the clash is about to escalate further, Zeus and Odin crash in, stopping the fight and scolding them for wasting their strength on internal squabbles. Eugen and Munin protest loudly, but Odin silences them with a terrifying aura that shatters the glass all around the garden. Uneasy, Loki backs off, and the gods of fortune also withdraw, though Bishamonten warns Buddha that traitors will always face judgment. Soji grumbles in frustration, but Isami convinces him to return to his quarters. Kojiro apologizes to Buddha for interfering, while Zeus, mocking, advises him not to stir up trouble. Buddha laughs, answering that only he gives himself orders, which sparks Zeus's booming laughter, calling him a true genius and admitting that Ragnarok ain't unfolding the way he had expected. Odin, meanwhile, lets his grim aura rot the garden to silence. At the same time, Gull apologizes to Brunhilde, but she comforts her and reveals she already chose the next warrior. Together they arrive at a Japanese-style room where they find Raiden Tamimon asleep surrounded by women. Upon waking, he mistakes Brunhilde's intentions, but she quickly corrects him and introduces Thrud, his Valkyrie. Though Thrud fears she might let him down, Raiden embraces her with excitement and confesses she's his ideal type, making the young Valkyrie blush furiously. Inside the Colosseum, Heimdall announces the draw and presents the next showdown: Raiden, the unbeatable emperor of sumo, versus Shiva, the world destroyer. The match kicks off with the traditional rituals of sumo. Raiden tosses salt into the air, as custom demands, and the crowd roars in approval. But then he shatters the solemn mood, catching everyone off guard with a flying kick straight into Shiva's face. The god staggers but manages to hold his ground. Raiden follows with a vicious Russian hook and a devastating knee strike, though Shiva counters by using his second pair of arms to grab him and hurl him through the air. Both warriors grin wide, enjoying the clash like it's a true battle between giants. Raiden's past gets revealed in the middle of the fight. He was born with such overwhelming muscle alongside Rudra. The story shifts to the past. In ancient times, the Indian pantheon was made up of who preferred to rest and dance among the animals. Shiva didn't understand his friend's obsession. He did it because he longed to become stronger. Shiva, with a bit of caring, accepted. One day, word came down that the butcher Rudra pushed hard, begging his buddy to roll with him. When they showed up, mocked the villagers once they realized their so-called protectors was 1,115 gods. From that summit, Shiva looked back at his village with a quiet pride, while Rudra, solemn as ever, asked for one last thing: a fight between the two of them, cause only one could truly rule from the top. Shiva, saddened as he realized his friend's choice was carved in stone, agreed to the duel, and so began the fiercest battle in all of India's history. A clash where the thunder of Shiva and Rudra's fists shook the entire land. For both, it was at once the wildest fun and the deepest sorrow they ever knew. The fight dragged on, relentless, but little by little, Shiva started gaining the edge, begging his friend to surrender, warning that if he kept standing back up, he'd end up destroyed for good. But Rudra just wouldn't stop, clutching his dream with every ounce of his strength. Faced with that unshakable will, Shiva finally dropped himself to the ground, admitting that Rudra was simply too strong for him. But just when it looked like he was about to give in, Rudra took another step forward. Shocked, Shiva asked him why, and his partner explained that when someone fought with every ounce of their strength, he had to answer in the same way. Risking your life against an opponent holding back was worse than dying itself. With tears spilling in his eyes, Shiva understood that Rudra's dream was to reach the absolute peak, while Rudra, calm as ever, told him not to cry, and declared that along with the 1,116 gods they had defeated, he had already reached the very top. Calling out each one by name, Rudra swore that this had been the greatest dream of his entire life. Shiva, burdened with the weight of all those names, became the head of the Indian pantheon, but in doing so, he lost his truest friend. Back in the present, the Indian gods watch closely the fight between Shiva and Raiden. Vishnu remarks that Shiva's fighting like a wild beast. Rudra, still there in spirit, points out that when his buddy dives deep into a brawl, nobody in existence enjoys throwing fists as much as him. Varuna recalls that he always smiled mid-battle, and Agni adds that he was way too reckless to ever hold himself back. Then all of a sudden, Shiva starts dancing in sync with the very rhythm of the cosmos itself, performing a beat only he could know. Zeus instantly recognizes that dance. It's the hidden treasure of the Indian pantheon, the technique Shiva once used to unite every single god together. Raiden tries to ram into him, but the god, still dancing, dodges smooth and keeps hitting him non-stop. Hermes explains that for Raiden, it feels just like he's being attacked by a crowd of enemies all at once. Gull, terrified, thinks the fight has turned one-sided, but Brunhild points out that she should. Body expands, using it like a living shield. Ares, noticing Shiva smoking, hears from Hermes that the god's body is literally burning up from the intensity of that dance, almost to the point of combusting into pure flames. Right at that instant, Shiva unleashes Kritivasa, a devastating downward kick that scorches Raiden's flesh. Both the human and divine audience believe the Rikishi has finally fallen, but instead, Raiden flashes a fearless grin. The sumo wrestlers in the crowd are deeply moved by that expression. Kajinosuke Tanikaze comments that at long last, Raiden is fighting with his full unleashed power. Then rises the memory of his childhood. Back when he was just a boy named Tarokichi, he joined in sumo practice. Among his rivals was Toraji, the strongest of the bunch, who usually beat several kids in a row until the others refused to even face him. One day, Toraji invited him to step in, and though he planned to hold back because of the little guy's frailty, Tarokichi slammed into him with raw strength and tossed him clean out of the ring. Even with 100 seals restraining him, his muscles were still way too powerful, and the kids started fearing him, branding him an ogre. Hurt and confused, he ran straight into his mother's arms, asking her why the gods had cursed him with a body like that. With tenderness, she explained that even before he could walk, she had prayed at the shrine for a son who'd be strong and healthy, and with warmth she urged him to be grateful and to use that strength of his to protect the weak. Marked forever by those words, Tarukichi grew into a kind-hearted young man who was always helping those in need, lifting heavy loads, lending support, easing the burdens of others. His life in Shinano might have stayed calm and peaceful if it weren't for the eruption of Mount Asama in 1783, which brought ash, hunger, and deadly plagues. Watching his people die in misery, he decided to leave for Edo at 17, hoping to become a sumo wrestler and send money back home. His trainer, Yohachi Urakaze, kept encouraging him to fight with his full strength, but Tarukichi kept holding back, scared of hurting his opponents. Then came Takikaze, who challenged him. If he couldn't beat him, he had to return home. Raiden struck with his full power for the first time, but Takikaze endured it and threw him down again and again. Yet even in defeat, Raiden discovered that sumo gave him the freedom to release his energy without fear. In 1790, he entered his very first official match under the name Raiden Tamimon, and he won so easily that the crowd erupted in ovation. From that day on, he dominated him together. When he asked to push it even further, she feared he'd destroy himself completely. Fighters were growing stronger because they were carrying the dreams and hopes of believed in him. Then came the fiercest exchange yet. Every strike from Shiva set Raiden's muscle, lending him their strength. The battle hit its peak when they unleashed their ult with Yatagarasu, and Shiva with Diva Loka. The clash was savage in half. Worn out and breathless, Raiden accepted his fate. Thanked Thrud for respect in his eyes, Shiva decapitated him in one final strike, declaring Raiden a great man who never once bowed down. Heimdall announced Shiva as the victor of the 4th round, and Raiden vanished in peace together with Thrud. Humans wept. The gods honored his strength, and Brunhilde raised a sanctuary in his memory. Tension rose the moment Zeus went after Buddha, trying to force him into fight. Gods came into existence. When Buddha stepped up as his opponent, hated and consumed, Zerofuku unleashed his fury through that suffering purified the spirit and was essential to enlightenment. But Buddha, moved by his deep compassion, offered food simply because his heart wanted it. That small act of kindness drew people toward him, and many began to follow, though he himself wondered if asceticism was the right path. Still, he reaffirmed that his chosen way was true. Later, he rescued a little girl destined to be sacrificed to the gods. He stood firm against the threats of the men surrounding him, ready to fight them all if he had to. Every action he took was a challenge thrown straight at fate and against those who denied the very existence of inner happiness. Brunhilde explained that Buddha despised anyone who tried to force others into surrendering themselves to suffering. Meanwhile, back in the present stage of Zerofuku, furious and consumed, stacked even more misfortune onto himself with a blade, and with it he dismantled Zerofuku's attacks piece by piece. Nobody cheered for him, while the whole crowd stood by Buddha's side, with a reckless strike, but Buddha dodged with steady calm and told him to love himself. Zerofuku couldn't understand those words, not until stunned. Zerofuku realized that deep down he had always longed to be like him. That revelation shattered his weapon and drained his strength. Buddha, that his gaze was now beautiful, and invited him to continue the fight. Destroyed half of Helheim before vanishing for countless eons. His return was possible only because someone had planted a fragment of his soul inside Zerofuku. The culprit could be none other than Beelzebub, who from his chamber observed everything unfold with a cold and twisted satisfaction. The battle against Tajun turned savage and brutal. His attacks were completely unpredictable, because he carried no light within his soul, which made Buddha's Lakayas, a weapon so overwhelming its power shook even the gods. The fatal wound across his torso. While Brunhilde prayed desperately for him, Buddha, but in the darkness a hand reached out and held him steady. The soul of Zerofuku weakness, Buddha unleashed the sword of the awakening of the celestial, marking an eruption of human euphoria. Exhausted, the enlightened one made his way slowly toward the human side, while the crowd shed tears, not only for his triumph, but also for the redemption of Zerofuku. Before finally collapsing, he raised a peace sign toward Brunhilde and Gull. At the same time, Beelzebub gazed coldly upon his so-called harvest, while Odin confronted him directly, demanding that he not meddle in Ragnarok, calling it nothing but his own personal obsession. Beelzebub confirmed it with chilling detachment, heightening the tension even more. With the score now tied 3-3, Hades stepped forward, offering himself for the next battle, swearing vengeance for Poseidon. His mere presence shook the hearts of everyone, but Brunhilde had someone already reserved, the mysterious king of